I'm Colleen Saidman Yee for Talking Yoga. We have the privilege and the honor of speaking to someone with bigger, more curlier hair than I have. We're sitting here with master teacher Seane Corn. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to us that you take time out of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to dive right into the questions because we have so much response for questions for you. A lot of people want to dig in and see what makes you tick. This is from Rebecca at the Sanctuary Room in Fort Worth, Texas. She says, you've been open about having a past that involved recreational drug use. Like myself and Colleen, I see the darker days of my past as an anchor for reaching greater heights. Does that resonate with you? Can you speak to the freedom you realize by owning what she's calling the mistakes of your past?
Yeah, sure. I think I would reframe the word. I don't look at it as mistakes. I mean, I definitely did a lot of drugs and I drank a lot, especially living here in New York City in the 80s. I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it mostly because I was a hypersensitive person in the world and I didn't know how to manage my emotions. I wasn't taught how to self-regulate, and drugs and alcohol were the thing that actually brought me into balance. And certain drugs, especially psychotropics, I was really into hallucinogenics, brought me into a state of consciousness that actually felt in some ways normalized for the way in which I thought. And it wasn't until I got into yoga that I realized there were other ways to be able to replicate that sensation and also manage the stress and the anxiety so that I didn't have to use drugs and alcohol to feel disconnected. I can actually be in a relationship with my emotions. So I don't look at them as mistakes at all. And I've always been open about that time in my life because I do not believe in shaming the human experience, whether it's sex or drugs or alcohol or any kind of thing that most people might perceive as bad, wrong, naughty, indulgent. I think it's just a necessary part of each individual's unique evolution, and why they do things, how they do things is between each person and the God of their own understanding. And so being able to utilize the tools of yoga did help me to let go of using substances. And my hope in the teaching that I do is also to provide people opportunities to find alternative opportunities to be able to manage their stress and also understand how the stress got there in the first place so that they can rethink perhaps their pattern of use or move towards more awareness around their addictions and some of the patterns of addiction.
So you really think that it was the yoga practice that let you let go of the use of drugs? Well,
it was yoga, it was therapy. I stopped doing drugs at a very early age, and I often joke, and it is a joke, because I got into yoga in 1987, maybe a little earlier than that because I was 19 years old, and I probably stopped doing, I first stopped drinking, then I stopped doing drugs because I really did like drugs a lot, and then I quit smoking cigarettes. And all before I was 20, I'd say 22. But I've often joked that I could have used like a few more years of, like just partying and inappropriate sex, because I was pretty young when I became sober and really stopped all of that playing around. But it was the yoga that taught me the skills of self-regulation.
When you say self-regulation, can you say a little more about that?
Meaning that because of the trauma that I experienced in my youth, and everyone experiences trauma to one degree or another, and trauma is just anything that overwhelms your capacity to cope and leaves you feeling helpless, hopeless, or out of control. And because I was a really sensitive child, there were events that were happening that I would get overwhelmed. I'd feel angry, I'd scared, sad, and no one was walking me through the process of my big feelings. And there was no place for me to go with the energy to discharge it the way one would with yoga. So it stayed very suppressed. So every time I would get triggered, every time there'd be an event that my body would contract, it would remind me of ... in the subconscious. My nervous system would go back to that deregulated state of my original trauma. And because I wasn't given the skills to actually grieve, to feel, to assimilate the information, drugs and alcohol were my way of numbing out. Before I got into drugs and alcohol, though, I had obsessive compulsive disorder. I was obsessed with the numbers 4s and 8s as a youth.
Interesting.
But it was same thing with self-regulation. By touching things, swallowing, blinking in certain patterns, it would help my nervous system calm down. So as a youth, that would be my drug of choice. When I came to the city, the anxiety level came up because I'm in this new environment. There's so much going on. I'm so insecure. I have no education whatsoever. I have access to so much. And so my nervous system was blown out. I've got the OCD happening that I'm trying to control and manage because it was embarrassing.
Right, pretend like it didn't happen.
Exactly.
That's not good.
And so I'm using more drugs. And I think the moment that was very life-changing for me was I was in a yoga class, and the teacher accidentally stepped on my foot. We were in downward dog, and he stepped on my right foot. And I immediately felt the anxiety come up because my body felt out of balance. And I needed so badly for this teacher to step on my other foot so that my body would come into harmony. And I'm obsessing about how maybe when the class is over, when I say goodbye, I can accidentally trip and clip his foot in a way that would then normalize it. And out of nowhere, the teacher said, breathe and everything changes. And so I took a really deep breath and exhaled, and nothing changed. The anxiety got worse and worse. And I took another deep breath, nothing changed. And it was probably the fourth breath that I took. Suddenly something shifted in my body, and I could feel the sensation in my body recalibrate, and the stress just dialed down slightly, and I was able to leave the studio without tripping on my teacher. And I put it into test the next day. I lived down on Avenue B, and I lived on the 4th floor of a walk-up, and every day I would leave my apartment, and there was 56 stairs from my apartment down to the bottom, and I would count the stairs, and I'd have to go back up to check my doorknob. Even though I know it was locked, it didn't matter. I had to check it, and I had to do that 4 times. So leaving my house in the morning or any time was kind of a production. It could take me 20 minutes to get out. And I leave the house, I count my 56 steps, I go to turn around to go upstairs, and then I remembered what my teacher said. So I sat at the bottom of the stairs, and I breathed. And the anxiety got worse and worse and worse and worse. And I can tell that it was the same sensation that would make me want to have a drink or smoke a joint or do coke, whatever. Right. It was a similar sensation. And I just waited and waited, and I was probably on the end, sitting on those steps maybe 45 minutes, but it changed, and I was able to leave. And that became the moment where I started to focus on my body and the signals my body was giving me when I was in anxiety, and the impulse that I had either to do this patterning or to see the correlation between my drug use and my stress and the OCD and my stress.
So yoga really has had amazing effects on you.
Yeah, very much so.
Incredible.